And maybe just for people who haven't actually launched a project yet, if you could just describe like what kind of statistics like Kickstarter's able to show you there.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the referral rates and everything else right now, so it's really handy. It gives you a great overview where you can see how much money's been raised via Kickstarter, how much has been raised externally, and average pledge amounts. So you get an idea, you get a nice handy pie chart to see what the breakdown is like in a more general way, and then you can start looking at, in the same way you would look at with Google Analytics or anything like that, you can start seeing where people have come from to find your project, how much they've pledged, what percentage of your total they represent. So, for example, people looking at the popular items on the Discover function on Kickstarter, that currently represents approximately 8% of our total. So 50 backers. Whereas people looking specifically for comics, they represent 25% of our backing right now. So 134 pledges. So you can see a really cool breakdown. Really gives you an idea of not only how it breaks down in terms of percentage of your total, but in terms of number of backers, but also just how fervent the fans are from certain different sectors. So I mean, I'm looking at this right now, and just by looking at you can order it down by total or by number of pledges and so on. Right now it's done by number of pledges, and that naturally represents percentage too. But at the same time, you can see, okay, people have come from certain kind of ways. So as an example, they've seen us on the homepage, they've seen us on the staff picks, they've seen us on the comics page. You can then start getting an idea of if you're trying to target particular members within the community, where they're entering your project, and just how keen they are to support projects within that, just by looking at how much more money they're willing to give. So it's very interesting, and it gives you a lot of food for thought on, so especially if you break targets, how you can stretch, how you can sort out your stretch goals, how you can possibly add new rewards. You can try, you can look at this information and try and tailor rewards for specific subsets of that community. It's interesting. It's really it really does hone the mind a little bit on trying to find the right answers in making your project go that little step further.
Have you guys been changing or refining where you've tried to get awareness of the Telikos Protocol based on these statistics as you go, or has it just been sort of something that's more a kind of, hey, wait, look at that, interesting?
We have been using the information to good effect. I mean, by being able to look at this, we're able to go, okay, well, I mean, we can clearly see that external sites, the second they post a link, because they have such a large reach, you're therefore much more likely to have a very quick boost if you manage to get a post on a large news site than you would if you spoke with smaller websites and so on. So I've spoken to a few smaller blogs and stuff like that, and I've seen posts on forums. And just by looking at this particular list, I can see that from those different sites, no one has backed us. However, you can look at, there's the entry right there, bleedingcool.com. The second that went up, we had a load of backers. So getting external awareness is obviously a very important thing. We've yet to quite crack that. But at the same time, you look at the statistics and you go, well, did we really need to?
So given all of this experience now that you guys are quite a way through, what do you think you'd do differently in terms of attracting attention for your project next time?
I think trying to attract the external awareness more early on might serve to our benefit. I mean, we're thankful for the fact that Bleeding Cool covered us before we'd actually reached our initial goals. That was within the first day or so, and that helped us in our final push to reach past the 9,500. So that was really great. But you then start thinking, well, if we'd had Bleeding Cool, we'd had comic book resources, and you start listing off all the other sort of blogs and websites that could have potentially covered us. You then start going, wow, we really missed a trick there. But at the same time, what made us newsworthy? At the time that we were releasing, it was just coming up to San Diego ComicCon, so you had lots of big news going on there. I definitely think that keeping an idea of what's going on within your community at that time, if there are big events about to go on, and you're trying to reach that external group to try and get more backers. For example, you're trying to run a fan film project or a small indie film project. Don't release around the Oscars, because all the news sites are going to be talking about Oscar fever, who's going to win the Oscar. If they're going to be concentrating on that, they're not going to talk about you. Specialist sites might, but larger news sites won't.
But you're competing with the big dogs.
Exactly. So I was competing with Marvel and DC that weekend, and that wasn't exactly that's not exactly a winning formula there.
So no table at Comic-Con?
We did have a table at Comic-Con actually, and that's borne some fruit, and we're seeing some interesting stuff coming from that. And we also actually had some backers come up and see our guys over there, so that was really cool. Yeah, it was great having them, having that chance to interact with them, and again, going back to before about being able to do the sales pitch and talk about all that stuff. It was good to be able to speak to them and hear their enthusiasm for our project as well, which again fuels what it is you're doing. You create a Kickstarter with the best intentions and the hope of being able to see this project happen, but it's only when you start hearing the people who are willing and supporting of what it is you're doing really getting behind you and telling you what it is they love about what it is you're doing, that you really get a feeling of, wow, this is what it's about. I know Jay has a whale of a time speaking to all the guys who are asking various questions and being able to speak with them on a one-to-one basis. I mean...
So sorry, for people who don't know, this is Jay from Vanquish Interactive?
That's correct, yeah. That's the name attached to the Kickstarter. He's the guy who's kind of doing a lot of the admin on that. I'm helping out every once in a while, but...
Best avatar ever for an admin guy.
Yeah, he decided to have a quick visit down to his local aircraft museum, and he managed to get a shot with a MiG-23. I'm envious. I love fighter jets, so yeah, I need to go there. But yeah, I mean, Jay's having a whale of a time doing that, and I am too. When I get the opportunity to engage with our fans and so on, and we're certainly hoping in sometime in the near future to be able to go out and to see people at conventions and essentially replicate what Jay and Nav got to do at San Diego Comic-Con. We're really eager to do that as well.
What really is the relationship between you guys and Vanquish Interactive?
Vanquish are assisting us with printing and everything else. They're really helping us get the book out there. Adam and I, we're creatives. We write stories. We do that. Those guys have the experience of getting the printing done, the raw mechanisms of actually getting a comic book out there. They're helping facilitate what it is we're doing.
So I guess somewhat like if you guys were the directors, they'd be the producers.
To some extent, yeah.
Okay.
They're helping make it happen, and we're very thankful for that.
Which actually leads us through to your rewards. Some people seem to have trouble coming up with rewards that are, more than just you get one copy of our product, 2 copies of our product. I thought it was quite ingenious of you guys to actually offer things, not just copies of the comic book, which would be obvious, but things like actually having full uniforms made for backers based on characters in the actual book. How did you guys go about coming up with what you were going to make your reward levels and what kind of funding level you were going to set them at?
Well, I mean, I spent a lot because I was deeply involved in working out the mechanisms we were going to have for the creation of our Kickstarter. So I spent a lot of time looking at what other comic creators were doing, as also film and stuff like that. Trying to get a feel for quirky and interesting ideas. Also looking at projects on IndieGoGo as well. There's another project that we're very very close friends with, Romantically Apocalyptic. They've got an IndieGoGo going on right now. I think they just broke $40,000 in funding, so that's great. And those guys, so they had a little idea. They actually have like masks of some of their leading characters. I thought that was quite a fun idea. Equally, looking around at comic creators, they'll have their book in in the various issues, in the hardback, in the softback. They'll set it up in whichever way they're planning on releasing it, and that works. It's a fairly solid means of getting attention for their project. When I sat down and started thinking, okay, how can we try and approach this? When I sat down with it initially, we figured, okay, well, 9,500, not necessarily the biggest amount. Let's try and keep prices reasonable, keep it accessible, at the same time offer a certain level of exclusivity. So the key thing there was the limited edition hardback that we had. We were only going to do 100 copies. You could have, and we also made sure to leverage our stuff with digital copies, because we knew that, as an example, with the hardback editions, they're not going to be available until middle of next year. We want to be able to get our story out there. We want people to be reading our story. So, much as we want people to have that hardback and to be able to have, enjoy the story in physical form, if people are buying the hardback and they're not going to get that for nearly a year, we'd like to have them reading the story as they go, so they can get a feel for the story and enjoy it while they're waiting. So there's a certain level of instant gratification, as well as the eventual thing they've essentially purchased. So I sat down with it. I tried to look at pricing levels. I'd read that there was a certain tipping point essentially that people were willing to spend, and normally it's no more than $30